Aloha mai kako, and welcome to our July 26, 2021 regular board meeting for the Board of Water Supply. I'm calling our meeting to order at 2:02 p.m. I'm Board Vice Chair Kapua Sproat, and I'm sitting in for our Chair Brian Andaya and joining our meeting via WebEx. I'd like to take a moment to take roll call of our board members who are also joining via WebEx. Please say aye when I call your name. Board Member Jade Butai.
Aye.
Board Member Roger Babcock.
Aye.
Board Member Naalehu Anthony. Board members who are video conferencing in, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you have a question, you want to enter or second a motion, make a comment, please unmute your mic and then identify yourself before continuing to speak. Mahalo. In the room here on Veritania Street, we have our manager, Ernie Lau, our board secretary, Joy Cruz Arque, information specialist, Tracy Burgo, along with two of our board members, Ray Soon and Max Sword. And on the telephone or by video conference, we have Jeff Lau and Jessica Wong, both from the City and County Corporation Council Department. Welcome, everyone. Before beginning our meeting, I'd like to note that this board is dedicated to providing safe, defendable, and affordable supply of water now and into the future. Pursuant to our 21st proclamation related to the COVID-19 emergency order issued by Governor David Ige on June 7th, 2021. And following public participation and consistent with social distancing practices, we will be meeting. So therefore, the following procedures are in effect for our meeting this afternoon. Board members who are participating from remote locations will be via WebEx. We will be accepting testimony in writing, by mail or online, as well as by phone. In-person testimony will not be accepted due to our COVID-19 pandemic and the need for social distancing. If there's anyone watching who would like to provide telephone testimony, you can do so during the meeting by calling 808-748-6040. Callers will be placed in a queue and brought up to testify one at a time. When your line is open, we ask that you speak slowly and state your full name for our record, spelling both your first and last names before starting your testimony. And you will have 2 minutes to state your position, and we will have a timekeeper who will remind you when you have about a minute left to wrap up your comments. Our board meeting materials are available online for those who are interested at our website at www.boardofwatersupply.com/board-meetings. And our meeting is available via live stream, also at our BWS website, www.boardofwatersupply.com/live. We have 2 items on our agenda this afternoon that require board action. Item number 1 requiring board action is approval of our minutes from our regular meeting on June 28th, 2021. The draft was distributed in our packets, and knowing all of you to be judicious minute readers, please let me know if anyone has found any errors or would like to make any corrections. Anyone? Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept the minutes of our regular meeting held on June 28th, 2021.
So moved. Jake.
All right, I have that. All right, I believe that was moved by Board Member Butai and seconded by Board Member Babcock. If I have that correct, any questions or discussions on our motion? All right, if not, all in favor say aye. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Sorry. Tracy, do we have any public testimony with respect to our minutes? I just wanted to double check because it is an action item.
No, Vice Chair, we don't.
Okay, thank you very much. So since there's no public testimony, we can then vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any in opposition? If not, then our motion passes. And that with that approval, we'll now turn to the second item for action this afternoon, which is the adoption of resolution number 927-2021, adoption of resolution of the same name, the same number, recommending to the city council, city and county of Honolulu, the transfer of Board of Water Supply interests in Wahiwa ditch easements and rights of way to the owners of properties encumbered by these easements and rights of way. So if you would like to testify, anyone in the public out there watching, now will be your time to call into the phone line. Tracy, is there anyone in the queue who would like to testify?
No, Vice Chair, they're not.
Okay. Ernie, is there presentation of the item?
Yes, Vice Chair, there is Mr. Michael Matsuo from our Land Division who will provide a brief presentation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and members. I'm Mike Matsuo from the Board of Water Supply Land Division. I'd like to recommend for adoption resolution number 9272021, which recommends to the City Council the transfer of Board of Water Supply interests in the Wahiwa ditch easements and rights of way to owners of properties encumbered by these easements and rights of way. And let me give you some background on the ditch system.
Chair Max Sword just joined the meeting.
Hey, Max.
Board member Sword.
Excellent. Thank you, Board Member Sword.
Okay, here we go. So some background on this, the Wahiwa ditch system transfer. Okay, so in 1901, the territory of Hawaii licensed to the Wailua Agriculture Company, Hawaiian Fruit and Plant Company, and other Wahiwa homesteaders to draw water from the Kaukonahua stream to supply water to Wahiwa via the Mauka ditch system. As you can see on that diagram there, the inlet intake is up high in the mountains, the Kola Mountains above Wahiwa. That same year, the Wahiwa Agriculture Company, Hawaiian Fruit and Plant Company, and those homesteaders also formed the Wahiwa Water Company to distribute water from the Mauka ditch system via the Wahiwa ditch system, and that water would be used for both domestic and irrigation purposes. Between 1903 and 1906, the Wahiwa Water Company was granted easements and rights of way to the Wahiwa ditch systems. You can see it highlighted in red on the map up there. As you can see, the ditch system extends throughout most of Wahiwa, from the upper portion to the lower portion. In the 1930s, the Wahiwa Water Company began using piping instead of the ditch system to distribute water for domestic uses. The ditch system, we believe, remained in use for irrigation for a period of time, and we are unaware of any documentation that canceled any of the existing ditch easements and rights of way. In 1953, the city acquired the Wahiwa water system, which included the Wahiwa ditch system easements and rights of way from the Wahiwa Water Company, and the suburban water system assumed operation and maintenance of both the Wahiwa water and ditch systems. In 1959, the suburban water system was transferred to the BWS, and that meant that the Wahiwa ditch system easements and rights of way were also transferred to the Board of Water Supply. In 1960, the board authorized manager Edward J. Morgan to take necessary actions to transfer or quitclaim portions of the Wahiwa ditch system easements and rights of way to owners of affected properties because, as manager Morgan noted, the ditch system was abandoned as the area was developed for residential use. BWS no longer had use for the ditch system, and those easements and rights of way were making it difficult for owners of affected properties to finance and construct their homes. So between 1960 and the present, we began quitclaiming ditch easements and rights of way upon request. We decided to go through this piecemeal approach instead of doing everything at all one time because of the extent of the ditch system itself. As you can see, it did extend all the way through Wahiwa. And the amount of time and effort it would have taken for us to field verify all those locations, confirm ownership of the affected properties, and also, where necessary, to petition land court to remove the encumbrances from the affected certificates of title. As you know, the city charter requires the city council to approve all quitclaim actions, and therefore to quitclaim the Wahiwa ditch easements and rights of way to the property owners. Unfortunately, not all of the quitclaims that we did were approved by council. So through consultation with the Corporation Council, we determined that we should obtain City Council approval to continue quitclaiming ditch easements and rights-of-way upon request. Therefore, this is the resolution. Resolution 927-2021. Sorry, it's a little small. So recommending to the City Council, City and County of Honolulu, transfer of Board of Water Supply interest in the Wahiawa ditch easements and rights-of-way to owners of properties encumbered by these easements and rights-of-way. Whereas Wailua Agriculture Company, Hawaiian Fruit and Plant Company, and other Wahiawa homesteaders organized the Wahiawa Water Company to distribute water to for both domestic uses and irrigation to Wahiawa via a system of ditches, also known as the Wahiawa Ditch System, per a memorandum of agreement dated April 6, 1901, and conveyed to the Wahiawa Water Company perpetual rights of way for the Wahiawa Ditch System, and in addition to the right, title, interest, and estate to their lands encumbered by the ditch system, as well as access over said lands to the ditch system, per indenture dated April 18, 1903, which was recorded at the Bureau in Liber 269, page 2, and also per indentures dated June 15, 1904, and May 9, 1906, and filed in the office of the Assistant Registrar of the Land Court, State of Hawaii, as document numbers 2 and 31 respectively. Whereas after the Wahiawa Water Company began using pipelines to distribute water to Wahiawa for domestic use, the Wahiawa Ditch System continued to operate and supply irrigation water to Wahiawa for a period of time. Whereas in 1953, City and County of Honolulu acquired from the Wahiawa Water Company all of its personal property used in its water development, storage, transmission, and distribution systems, together with all of its rights, title, and interests in the Wahiawa Ditch System, easements, and rights-of-way per indenture dated June 16, 1953, and recorded at the Bureau of Conveyances in Liber 2731, page 173. Whereas the Suburban Water System assumed control, operation, and management of the Wahiawa Water Company water system and the Wahiawa Ditch System easements and rights-of-way on behalf of the city. Whereas the City Board of Supervisors approved resolution number 807, which transferred the Suburban Water System to the Board of Water Supply, effective January 1st, 1959, thereby effectively conveying the Wahiawa Ditch System easements and rights-of-way to the Board of Water Supply. Whereas then Manager and Chief Engineer Edward J. Morgan noted to the BWS Board that the Wahiawa Ditch System had been abandoned for many years as the area was developed for residential use. BWS no longer had any use for it, and the Wahiawa Ditch System easements and rights-of-way were a problem for owners who wanted to construct and finance their homes, and recommended the board authorize him to take any actions necessary to transfer BWS interest to the Wahiawa Ditch System easements and rights-of-way to the owners of the affected properties as requests are received, provided that no water lines and appurtenances are located in said easements and rights-of-way. Excuse me. Whereas at its October 20th, 1960 meeting, the BWS Board approved Manager Chief Engineer Edward J. Morgan's recommendation. And whereas BWS has transferred or quitclaimed its interest in the Wahiawa Ditch System easements and rights-of-way in a piecemeal fashion to the owners of the affected property since 1960, instead of in one action because of the extent of the Wahiawa Ditch System and the amount of time and effort that would be needed to collectively field verify the locations of said easements and rights-of-way, determine ownership of all parcels affected, obtain the necessary documents to confirm ownership, and to petition land court where necessary to quitclaim said easements and rights-of-way and remove the encumbrances from the affected certificates of title. Sorry, excuse me. Whereas not all of the executed quitclaims were approved by the City Council as required under Section 7-105F of the revised charter of the City and County of Honolulu, 1973, which states that BWS is authorized to recommend to the City Council the sale, exchange, or transfer of real property and interest in real property under BWS's control. And whereas BWS has determined through consultation with the City Department of the Corporation Council that BWS should obtain City Council approval to quitclaim all of its remaining rights to the Wahiawa ditch system easements and rights of way so it can continue its piecemeal process. Thanks. Excuse me, sorry. Now therefore, be it resolved by the members of the Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu, that the Board of Water Supply recommend to the City Council the transfer of its interest in the Wahiawa ditch easements and rights of way to owners of properties encumbered by said easements and rights of way, provided that there are no BWS water pipelines, city storm drain lines, and appurtenances located in said easements and rights of way. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
Yeah. Any questions for Mr. Matsuo?
Yeah, it said that the city paid $900,000 for the system. They transferred it to us for nothing?
Yes.
Yes, and we're transferring it to property owners whose property is encumbered by these easements.
Correct.
For nothing.
Yes.
It wasn't our 900,000, it was the city's. It
Yes,
wasn't our
that's correct.
ratepayers.
No, it was not.
Okay, so that's the first question I had. The second one was, what you don't say in the resolution at the end is that we would be transferring easements, et cetera, to homeowners at their request. You don't say that in the resolution. You do say that in the presentation, the information that you present. And that's somewhat important to me. I think we should try and get rid of it all, so we have no ongoing liability. Is your intent to not just transfer it to those who request, but to try and disperse the rest of the remnant pieces to landowners, whether they request or not?
At this point, no, we were just going to continue on with the piecemeal process.
I don't think anything we're going to vote on is going to
Restrict us.
restrict you from doing that. I would urge that we do whatever we can that is not overly taxing on the staff to, in fact, distribute all of it. Because, again, we're exposed, and we can't use it. We're not using it. It doesn't fit into our system. It's just exposure. And so I would seriously urge that we transfer it.
Just so that you know, I did the ditch system was put in place a long time ago, so it's a little bit hard to match all the parcels, but looks like by my count, there's about 250 parcels that are affected, and we've quitclaimed about 7. I put in a letter 20, but it was actually more closer to 70 little parcels that we've given out. So we could try and do all of them, one fashion or another, but it would probably take a while. So
There are some homeowners, I think, that would like to move faster. But we can explore that. And those that want to move faster, maybe do it on a piecemeal basis, and just to get it moving for them.
Will the council just have to vote one time?
yes, we're asking them to transfer all the remaining so that we can do it as we need to, if either by piecemeal process or try and do it all one time.
Okay, thank you.
That just came in my question, was the council voting on it. So this resolution basically tells the council vote one time?
Yes.
Okay.
The council would have to adopt a resolution.
Yes, we'd have to submit a new resolution to the city council, right? But yeah, we're just asking them to vote one time to allow us to transfer the entire ditch easements.
What is the percentage that's left to be transferred?
I would say we only got about a third of it, so maybe 2/3
Left.
more left to do.
The third left.
Two-thirds left.
2/3 left.
roughly 2/3 left to get
Oh, to get rid of.
to get rid of. Yeah.
Oh,
There's quite a few.
I was gonna say, that's quite a bit.
Yeah. So like I said, of the 250, we've only gotten rid of about 70.
Okay.
But we can explore, seeing if we can do it all at one time, or do it as a combination.
Now, my next question, the follow-up to that is that on the percentage that is still, we're still responsible for, has any of those been rejected by the council?
The problem is we did those 70, but not all of them were actually brought before the council. So we're
Oh.
trying to clean it up now by
Oh,
getting council approval to get rid of the whole thing, and then we can either do it piecemeal process or we can try and do it all one time.
So this, the other thing to keep in mind, the question related back to the $900,000 the city paid for it. At that time in 1953, there was two city operators of the water systems on Oahu. One was the Honolulu Board of Water Supply, which focused more on the metropolitan Honolulu area. Outside of Honolulu was something called the Suburban Water Services. Was it part of Public Works? Right. But back then in about 1959, there was a merger where Suburban Water basically transferred all of its assets to the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. Then we took on island-wide jurisdiction for the city's water systems. So yeah, that 900,000 wasn't from the BWS.
Do we have any other questions from our board members for Mr. Matsuo? If not, I have a couple of questions. So Mr. Matsuo, do you have any approximation, and I understand that it may be different depending upon the size of the parcel, the location, or what have you, but do you have an approximate cost of what it would take per transaction in order to complete the transfers?
No, I do not. The parcels are a mix of what we term land court parcels, where we would have to petition land court to quitclaim the easements, which would require doing surveys, land surveyor having to come on board and do that. The others are what we call regular system, where we wouldn't have to petition land court, but we'd still have to do the surveys itself. So I'm not sure exactly how much it would cost us to survey the remaining 2/3 of the ditch system, but that would be certainly one cost we would have to do. And I would imagine, because of the extent of the ditch system, it's probably going to be somewhat expensive, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending. Because a lot of these properties are already developed, so, and the rights of way, they don't really exist on the ground where you don't see a ditch. So they'd have to do a lot of research and stuff. So not only that, but then we'd also have to search title, which could take, a while too. Title searches usually cost about $300 each. So if you're looking at like 190 properties, you can kind of see how much the thing would be there.
Yeah, that's exactly why I was wondering. And then I was also wondering with respect to staff time, just because I could imagine that each transfer, depending upon the complexity, the number of times that it's changed hands, could be complicated. And,
Yes.
We're so happy with Jeff and Jessica and the wonderful work that they do, but I'm wondering whether you anticipate that that can be handled in-house, or that will be something that we will need to retain outside counsel for.
At the level of staffing I currently have, I have one abstractor and 2 other land agents. I think it might be in our best interest, if we're going to do it all one time, to probably contract it out. Because we need a land server, we need title services. We can prepare the documentation in-house, that's not too bad. But it's really the title searching and the surveying part is going to be the most time consuming of the effort.
Yeah, that's what I was. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ernie.
On the question of legal support from Corporation Counsel, maybe Jeff, could you weigh into the response on that?
Good question. I don't know offhand who Corporation Counsel would be.
I think Corporation Counsel would come into play when we start drafting the documents. I mean, even though they're pretty straightforward, Corporation Counsel would have to look at each separate document, because we would have to do one for each property that we would want to cancel off. We can't do like one blanket that'll catch everybody at one time.
and we would have to approve that beforehand for each.
Jeff, you're breaking up.
Sorry about that. Corporation Council would have to approve as conform and legality each document, as Mike indicated. So yeah, I'm not sure if outside counsel would be required. That's something that we can evaluate further as we move through this process.
Okay, and that's why I was wondering, because especially to the degree that there are land court properties involved, that becomes more complex and more expensive. And so I'm just trying to get a sense of what we're committing to if I agree to doing the transfer, because 190 individual parcel transfers with surveys and abstracts and everything else. I'm just wondering whether, and I understand, I hear board member Soon's concern about liability and interest in transferring to the degree that we can, but I'm just wondering what we're looking at financially and whether to some degree we would want to ask landowners to cover some of the costs, because they also have an interest in acquiring the property to the degree that they want to further develop, you know, any of that stuff. So anyone have a response to that?
Vice Chair, I have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead, board member Anthony.
I guess I'm just curious as to kind of if we've been at this since 1960 and this is coming up for kind of redoubling our efforts, you know, more than half a century later, kind of maybe, you know, staff could point to how arduous a process it has been thus far and kind of why we ended up with only 70 parcels being conveyed and what they feel the process might be moving forward, if that was the case. In and around, also, I think that the costs are certainly up for discussion, but certainly just like how many more years I think it'll take if we were to expedite.
If we try to do it all one time, you mean?
Yeah, what would that timeline look like?
I would say you're looking at maybe a couple years, maybe a little more, just because of the extent that we have to look at the number of parcels.
Yeah, I would probably caveat and say that it also depends if it's like land court, how long it would take to go through the land court process, which sometimes could take a while.
Yeah. Land court has a tendency sometimes to be a little longer. It could be 6 months, it could be a year for them to actually approve it. These kind of quick claims, though, however, they're a little less involved in, say, a grant of easement, so it might be shorter, but it's hard to say at this point if we were to submit a whole bunch of them today, if they could get it to us in a couple months.
I would request that, you know, we maybe give us some time to actually look into this more carefully and actually try to gauge the level of effort and the cost and the timeline to try to move this effort forward.
That would be helpful. Mr. Matsuo, I was also wondering if you had any sense of the division between land court and non-land court properties. You know, are we looking at a couple land court 10 land court properties and 180 other ones, or how does that break down for us?
At this point, I haven't looked at it that closely. I would, if I had to guess, I would say maybe 50-50 or maybe 60-40. I'm not sure exactly, but they're all over the place basically. So yeah. Sorry, I can't really answer that question.
No, that's helpful. I was just trying to get a sense. Do we have any additional questions from any of our other board members?
Vice Chair, just one last question, if I may. I'm just really curious how many other instances of property ownership are like this. I know that I think a couple of meetings ago we talked about the reservoirs that had been used for actual water service in the past, and now they're just kind of holding there to you know, mitigate any kind of flooding. And then, you know, we have this as well. And I'd be curious to know kind of broadly, in kind of broad strokes, what that might look like with any other properties where this persists, where it's not, adding to like water use or servicing water to customers, but we have ended up with these parcels that, add some kind of risk, some amount of risk to the portfolio and to the board.
Excellent question, Mr. Moth.
I just want to say, and Mike, you can jump in, that we own quite a bit of property all over the island, so we'd have to take some time to kind of look at each parcel and identify the issues related to the parcels. And so we don't really have an answer for you right now. That's a very good question. These seem to come up when there's a need, and we try to handle them as they come. Some of the issues are like, I think Mike was pointing out, is just the limitations of our capacity to deal with all these issues that have built up over the last 90 years since the Board of Water Supply has been in effect. So, Board Member Anthony, we don't have a simple answer for you. We can start to look at it, but it would take a substantial effort to go and look at all of our lands.
Yeah, Ernie, I don't think I'm asking for that. I just wanted to see if there's anything else that's kind of sticking up in the portfolio that is kind of this long-standing kind of gray area with respect to, like, it was a really useful set of easements or properties, but it hasn't really persisted in terms of actually sending water to the customers. So I don't mean to make more work for you. I was just curious, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Board Member Anthony, I think a lot of them have to do with the watershed properties that we tend to acquire. I mean, Haiku Stairs is a prime example of that. We acquired it for watershed protection, and we got the stairs as part of the deal. So those kind of things will tend to happen. I think the reservoirs, the Nuuanu reservoirs, is another example of that. But like Manager Lau said, I don't think we can give you right off the top of our head exactly which ones are like that, except the Haiku Stairs and the reservoirs and now the Wahiwa Ditch stuff.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have one additional question. Bernie or Mike, do you folks recall if BWS filed a declaration of water use for the system back in the late 80s?
I have no idea, because I think the ditch system wasn't functioning in the 80s already.
Yeah, I don't believe it was probably somewhere between the 60s and the 80s where the ditch wasn't even being used. We're not entirely certain when the ditch stopped being used, in all honesty. It's just at one point it stopped being used.
So it started like in 1901, and then at some point the Wahiwa Water Company converted to pipe systems, and then I don't know if they laid the pipe in the ditches or put pipes in other locations, and then somehow the city acquired it for that $900,000. And then it came over to the Board of Water Supply as part of the transfer from Suburban Water to BWS. But the ditch easements and the ditch system, it's a little unclear when it went out of use, but it does appear to be quite a long time ago. In Mike's report, we also mentioned some of the early pipe material was wood stay pipe. So you can tell that this was actually a very old system.
Thanks for that, Ernie. I was just actually wondering, to the degree that a declaration had been filed, that might be a source of additional information on the easements, the location, the condition, that sort of thing. But it's fine, because I know sometimes people file even when the systems are not in use because of the potential, value for the future. But that's fine. I was just trying to find out.
And actually, we could just make an inquiry with the Water Commission, to see if anybody did file for this system.
And actually, we can look online now, I believe. I think some of the decks are online. I was just but yeah, that would be easy to check with Dean, and he would be able to let us know.
Okay.
That would be great. So Ernie, do you have anything else to add on this item? I mean, we've had a lot of discussion. There have been a lot of questions asked by various board members, some of which we need more follow-up on. So I'm just wondering what folks' inclinations are, and we can do that either by motion or if, and I guess what I'm wondering is whether people feel like we have enough information to make a decision at this point. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're suggesting here is the board adopt a resolution or amend the resolution to allow us to go forward to the council, to get the council to support the disposal.
Yeah, I understand the motion. I'm just wondering from the board members whether people feel like our questions have been answered sufficiently and people feel comfortable moving forward on the motion, or whether or not people need additional information on the costs, for example, before. So I'm just trying to get a inclination from folks before I ask for a motion. Anyone?
Yeah, this is Roger. I think I have enough information. It seems to me, if I understand correctly, this is just the first step, and it's to be able to dispose of the property. The other actions that will cost money would occur later and are not dependent upon this resolution. That's the way I understand it.
Anyone else? Any? Not all. All right. If not,
problem.
then go ahead.
No, I have no problem.
Okay, thanks, Max. I just wanted to double check again, Tracy, do we have any public testimony on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Okay. If not, may I have a motion?
Yeah, so moved.
Second, Jay.
Okay. So I believe that it was motioned by board member Sword and seconded by board member Utai. Sorry, can we have a roll call? Oh, any discussion? Any additional discussion, I should say. If there's no additional discussion, Joy, could you help us with the roll call vote, please?
Board Member Ray Soon,
I don't know. Can I kind of look around?
Board Member Max Sword,
All right.
Board Member Nalehu Anthony,
Aye.
Board Member Jay Buchai,
Aye.
Board Member Roger Babcock,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Kapos Pro.
I'm also Kanalua, given the costs, but I will, given that we have enough to pass, I will also vote aye.
Vice Chair motion passes with 5 ayes and 1 abstention. Is that an abstention?
With reservation?
Yeah.
With reservation?
Abstention.
Abstention, 1 abstention. So 5 ayes and 1 abstention.
All right, mahalo, board members, and Joy for helping us there with the vote. So moving on, we have 9 items for information this afternoon. So first up, we have Jason Takaki, our program administrator. Oh yes, thank you, Mike. I'm so sorry. Still working on it. Sorry, folks. It's so much harder there in person. So first up, we have Jason Takaki, our program administrator in the Capital Projects Division, with item number 1 on our Capital Improvement Program quarterly update.
No.
Yeah, I think
That's it.
you need some help with the presentation.
Listen.
Yes. So this is your PowerPoint.
Oh, what up?
That's your PowerPoint, right?
That's right. Okay. Thank you, Joy. Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and board members. Jason Takaki from the Capital Projects Division. This is the quarterly update for the Capital Improvement Program for all divisions for the final quarter, or the 3rd and 4th quarters of fiscal year 2021. This report covers both the 3rd and the 4th quarters of the recently completed fiscal year, My report in May was deferred due to the length of that month's agenda. So going right to the numbers, in the third quarter, a total of 16 contracts were awarded for a total encumbrance of $16.6 million. In the fourth quarter, a total of 50 contracts was awarded for a total encumbrance of $163.8 million. The total for the fiscal year is shown there, $183.9 million. And the detail of the awards is on the next page. This is the third quarter awards. And these 2 pages are the fourth quarter awards. Finally, this graph, which is updated quarterly, shows the percent CIP budget execution by quarter. As you can see here, the cumulative percent budget execution rose from the lowest in the last 6 years in the third quarter to finish as the second highest annual percentage. The final cumulative percent budget execution for FY21 was 117%, and is shown as the black line on the graph. Just for your information, if you've been watching the news, particularly the business news, you may be wondering if Board of Water Supply bids are being affected by recent reports of construction material increased prices. We did see increased bid prices for some materials this year, likely due to the impacts of the pandemic and the restarting of the economy. We anticipate this will continue into the current fiscal year as materials shortages, shipping delays, and the reemergence of inflation could drive bid prices higher. As you recall, when we went through the budget a couple of months ago, there are provisions in the CIP to address at least some degree of rising bid prices. And that is my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Takaki. Do we have any questions from the board members? If we have no. Go ahead.
Chair, if I could just add to Mr. Takaki's, as you can see in the last quarter, we really worked really hard. And I just want to recognize the Capital Projects Division and other divisions, including our Procurement Office and our Finance Division, along with the Water Resources Division. You can see that the fourth quarter, everybody put their shoulder to the wheel and worked really hard to get this out. And although we started the first 3 quarters off slower, we actually finished on the fourth quarter very hard. There are some projects that are going through the protest process, so we'll see how we do with those projects. But just want to recognize the hard work of the BWS team here. Good job. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of work by a lot of people. You know, the numbers are different this year, of course, and I think that's primarily because there were 6 construction contracts that we awarded in the fourth quarter, and they made up 2/3 of that total, which was what, $163 million. And so it's because of the impact of those large projects, but at the same time, we also did award and execute 50 total contracts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, for the update, Mr. Takaki, and for the additional info, Manager Lau. That's, yeah, mahalo for your efforts. What an outstanding showing. So how great. Do we have any testimony on this agenda item?
A participant has left the meeting.
Oops. Oops. Hello. I think we may have lost our board connection in town. Leho, I still see you there, yeah?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I think we did.
Okay. Roger, are you still there? And Jade?
I'm still here.
Okay,
Yes.
well, they
Yep,
lost us.
still here.
We have quorum. We can continue. What would you folks like to do? I'm gonna text right now and ask Ernie what happened.
We need a gavel to adjourn.
Right? Oh my goodness, this is getting crazy. I don't know whether because we're all still in the meeting, it seems like they lost connection, which I don't know if we're still.
Vice Chair Kapua, this is Michelle
Yes.
Thomas. It looks like Stella put in the chat that they're checking on the connection right now.
Okay, fabulous. Oh, I see it right now. Thank you. All right, well, we will see. And it looks like, at least from my showing on WebEx, that mine still says live. So we'll just see. If we're live, mahalo everyone for your patience. We're having some technical difficulties, and we will be back with our first item for information as soon as we can get those technical issues resolved.
A participant has joined the meeting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be.
Sorry about that. My bad. I take responsibility for that unintended recess.
That's
Sorry,
don't
Commissioner.
press the red button, Ernie. You just let me know.
Yeah, good thing it's not the red button to launch missiles.
Oh, let's not bring that up again.
Well, we had quorum. We were just going to keep moving on. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. I think I had asked, I think right before the connection went out, if we had any testimony on this item.
No, Vice Chair, we do not.
All right, great. If we don't, then I just want to thank everyone again for the reporting, for your hard work, and also for your patience. And with that, we will move on to, thank you so much, Jason. We will move on to our second item of information, which is our financial update for the quarter ended June 30th, 2021. And that we will call on Mr. Joe Cooper.
Joe will be here in a minute. Thank you. And Joy will bring up the presentation.
Good afternoon, board members.
Your presentation's up.
Yeah. Oh. Good afternoon, board members. I'm Joe Cooper, Waterworks Controller, here to give you the financial performance report for the year end June 30th, 2021. Our revenue for the year was just under $245 million, which was pretty close, which is 1% under our budget. And our operating costs were $134 million, which was under budget by $24 million of $207 million, and which leaves our net revenue of $61 million, which was $24 million over our budgeted net revenue of $37 million. Our operating This represents our operating budget. It's not to be confused with our CIP budget, but the net revenue is used to fund emergency operations and the pay-go portion of our CIP budget. As a comparison, we budgeted about $69 million in operating funds for our CIP budget in 2021. The next slide shows some of the major cost drivers of our operating costs. Personnel costs were $7 million under budget at $44 million. This is a slight increase from previous years, but it still reflects our vacancies.
Supplies and services was $11 million under our budget of $55 million. This was about 14% less than last year. Our miscellaneous and repairs budget was $6 million, or 35% under budget. And our equipment budget was under budget by $2 million, about 35%. Utilities was under budget by $4 million, or 16%, at $22 million. The next slide shows some of our variances for each of the divisions within the Board of Water Supply. You might notice that most of them are under budget. This slide gives a different look at the categories as a percentage of our total operating costs. Materials and services and supplies is our largest operating expense at about 30% of our operating expenses. This was $55 million, which was up from last year. Last year, or in previous years, actually, fixed charges has been the largest portion of our operating budget. But as we have been implementing more operations, supply services and materials has increased as a percentage of our total charges. Fixed charges is second at 29%, or about $54 million. Personnel services is 24% of our operating budget at $44 million, and debt service is 15% of our operating budget at $26 million. This slide compares operating costs of each of these divisions to budget. Again, material, services, and supplies. The second column is about 20% under budget, which is noticeable. Equipment is 34% under budget. Debt service is about $2 million under budget, which is about 9%. And fixed cost, which is the column on the right-hand side, is pretty much on budget at it's actually $100,000 under budget. This slide represents the monthly variances in our operating expenses and also the cumulative year-to-date variance. You can see over on the right-hand side, our cumulative year-to-end variance is 11.6% below budget. These budget variances on a monthly basis range from about 4 to 12% over the past 4 years. Monthly expenditures average about $15 million a month. Expenditures in May and June dropped to about $14 and $13 million respectively. You can notice those in the two columns on the right. Some major contributors to these are the decrease in salaries, professional services, and SRF debt service that fell during those months. Otherwise, the monthly expenditures pretty much fall within our historical ranges. And finally, we have the net operating revenues, or the revenues budget. And again, on the right side of the graph, you can see that our revenues are within 0.1% of our budgeted revenues. Like I said, they're slightly under budget, but basically we call that on budget. Historically, our annual basis, our revenues track pretty close to budget. And so this pretty much follows that pattern. Again, you can see that on the left-hand side that revenues tend to be higher during the summer months and lower during the winter months when they drop down in the middle of the slide. That concludes my quarterly presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions or comments.
Board members, any questions?
Yes.
This is pretty much what we saw at our workshop. Not a lot of variance.
Yes, there's a lot of, they're similar to the budget presentation in May.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Do we have any public testimony via telephone or written testimony that was submitted?
No phone testimony, Chair, Vice Chair.
All right, if we have no further testimony and there are no further questions for Joe, then thank you so much, Mr. Cooper.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
So next up, with item number 3 is Michelle Thomas, our Executive Assistant for Human Resources, with an update on our recruitment status. Michelle?
Thank you.
Good
Michelle will be
afternoon.
appearing via WebEx. Go ahead, Michelle.
Good afternoon, board chair and board members. I am here to provide you with the recruitment status update for the last quarter of the last fiscal year. This will also include the period from February 2020 through the end of June, not February 2020, February 2021 through the end of June 2021, due to the fact that the May report was deferred. And so it has been adjusted to reflect that 5-month time frame. The labels have also been updated with some additional information for you folks, so that way it will be a little bit more reflective and indicative of what our activities have been in the Human Resources Office. For the period of February 2021 through June 2021, we had 13 new hires, 20 promotions, 3 transfers.
Very, show the bottom. Okay. A little lower.
2 demotions, 15 separations, 49 new approvals to fill, and 15 canceled requests. So as you can see by this chart, as well as the following chart, we've had quite a bit of activity going on in the Human Resources Office. We've been trying as much as possible to move forward on filling our vacancies as quickly as we possibly can, given our current climate. As such, Manager Lau has requested that I give you folks highlights of the different activities that have been happening in the Board of Water Supply in order to ramp up our recruitment. And so I'm going to give you a short presentation on that. Joy, can you change to the PowerPoint, please? Okay, next slide, please. So we continue to interview for many key positions with the agency. This past quarter, we were able to fill some of the following positions, which are critical to our mission. That includes our right-of-way agent, as well as our customer service representatives and a water plant maintenance mechanic. We've also been successful in promoting some of our staff members up to the next level positions, including several lead pipe fitters, as well as water meter mechanics. This allows the Board of Water Supply to capitalize on the skills of our employees and what they've learned in their tenure with the Board of Water Supply, and opens up new entry-level or lower level positions which are easier to fill. This is a concrete example of our organization's investment in the future of the Board of Water Supply. Next slide. We've also worked really hard with the communications office, as well as our counterparts at the city, to do various types of job announcements. And we've also posted through various different external job search websites, including industry-specific job search websites, including the AWWA National Chapter, as well as the Hawaii Chapter, as well as AMWA or AMWA, Brown and Caldwell, Hawaii Jobs on Demand, and iHire Engineering. We've also worked with the city, who posts our open recruitments on ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and various other national search engines. Next slide, please. We've been working heavily with the communications office in order to develop new messaging and marketing through various different channels in order to widen our scope for our recruitments. This includes social media posts that have been increased. And here are 3 examples along with this to share with our employees as well. We've also worked with the communications office to develop little cards that were given to them to hand out to their employees with our annual message that encourages them to share the message that the Board of Water Supply is hiring. Okay, next slide. We've also worked with with the communications office to create a BWS jobs frequently asked questions page, which allows them to get information more about how the hiring process works with the city and with the Board of Water Supply, and gives them tips and pointers on how to complete applications in order to be successful in being able to come in for interviews for jobs. Next slide. These are examples of the business cards that were given to the employees with their annual messaging that we encouraged employees to tell their family and their friends that we do have permanent positions with the Board of Water Supply and have them apply. As you know, we are a merit-based system, and so we are using this as a means to be able to market to other groups that we may have not reached otherwise. And that concludes my report. Is there any questions?
Mahalo, Ms. Thomas. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, if I may, a couple questions.
Please.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Recruiting is a challenge for all of us at the city. I noticed most of your things seem to be about white collar type positions, and civil engineers and other folks like that, which are a challenge, but perhaps not as big a challenge as some of the blue collar workers. At least that's our experience. And you showed several different things, Michelle, including different types of social media and different things like that. And I guess I was wondering whether you have any data on which things have actually worked. So people that you've hired or attracted, if you have gotten from them what was effective, in other words, which things are working, and which things, or maybe by the different types of positions. If you have that information, I'd be curious.
We have been trying to get that information from folks, particularly through our onboarding process. However, a lot of times they don't remember how they were, put onto our positions and everything unless they were specifically introduced to the position by a employee. And that's part of the reason why we went down the route of the cards with the annual message to see if we maybe could spur that on a little bit more. As far as our social media posts and things like that, a lot of times they will tell us, we see your social media posts all the time about positions being available. And what we will find is we get more traffic of people calling our office or calling our communications office to inquire. And that's basically what we've been able to kind of look at, but we haven't been able to really get good statistics as to the source of where they got first interest in the positions, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's helpful. And have you, has BWS done any job fairs before, or?
Pre-pandemic, we did do quite a few job fairs. We would actually work with the city to do job fairs as well as host our own, and also work with our partner in the industry, like, for example, the AWWA, AMWA, and things like that, where we would participate in their job fairs, or even sometimes we would participate in high school job fairs to at least provide information to get the idea of working for the Board of Water Supply in folks' head, so that way when they move forward, they would be more inclined to look at us as an employer.
That's great. One last question, Michelle. I'm not sure if you can answer. Is once you've got somebody that's decided to come for an interview, and then what would be typical amount of time? Let's say it's successful and you want to hire them, and you until you get to the onboarding process.
The honest truth is that we try to get them on as soon as possible. If we can get them in within a month, then that is great for us. The challenge is a lot of folks generally have to give time, notice to their current employer in order for them to be able to start working with us. So it varies. Depending on that person's work status as to how long it might take. We can sometimes get people in as early as 2 weeks. A lot of times, though, it does take more towards the, 2-month to 3-month time frame once a job offer has been given. Now, prior to that job offer, that also can vary. We have tried to streamline our process quite significantly within the Board of Water Supply to get it down to about an average of 8 months in order from application to actual being able to have person on the job, which is significantly less than what is at the city, which averages anywhere between 12 to 16 months. But it's kind of a relative thing. Due to the merit-based process, there are a lot of things that we have to go through in order to comply with the civil service rules and the Hawaii revised statutes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for those excellent questions, Board Member Babcock. Any other questions for Ms. Thomas?
Vice Chair, just one question.
Brown.
Yeah, aloha, Michelle. Thanks so much for taking the time today. Just one question. In general terms, can you speak to how mainland recruitment works or doesn't work by maybe just letting us know what percentage is hired from the mainland through some of these larger third-party websites?
I really can't speak to a percentage. I do know that there is a handful of every recruitment that are folks from the mainland. And, Manager Lau has empowered my office to be able to be a little more creative with how we do interview processes and things like that in order to be able to meet the civil service rules, but also be able to encourage folks from the mainland to be able to apply, particularly for those positions that are hard to recruit for, such as our civil engineers. So we have implemented virtual interviews and things like that for certain positions when it is possible and it doesn't require other more practical assessments. But, it is one of those things where it really is subject to the position and what the position requires in order for us to really assess whether there'd be a good fit for the position. But we do encourage as many people as possible, and we do actually provide a lot of information to folks who are on the mainland when they call in. I think through our partner agencies like Brown and Caldwell or through the AWWA National is where we do get a lot of inquiries from folks that are on the mainland that may be interested in our positions. I don't necessarily believe that we get as many inquiries from the more major national websites, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks so much.
I have a question, Chair.
Please go ahead.
Michelle, we keep talking about recruitment. I was wondering about terminations. Where are we losing people to? Are we losing it to retirement primarily? Do you have any feel for what percentage are going elsewhere to higher paying jobs or better jobs, etc.?
It varies throughout the year, generally towards the end of the year, as well as the end of the fiscal year timeframe. We will lose a lot of folks to retirement. That has been happening significantly for the last 3 or 4 years. I think this year is the first year where we have had slightly less people who are eligible to retire than there are folks that are not eligible to retire. I think this is I think this report reflects the first year we've had that. In the What we find a lot is that we have a lot of internal promotions, and that's where a person will leave one position to the next, where we have a lot of turnover. We do have a lot of transfers to other city departments, and then some folks just choose to pursue other options outside of the Board of Water Supply. So it can be more of a 50-50 thing depending on the time of the year.
50-50 between retirement and moving on.
Correct.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Ms. Thomas? If not, do we have any public testimony?
No, there is no phone testimony, Vice Chair.
Great, thank you so much. With that, then thank you so much, Ms. Thomas, for your time and for your hard work and efforts. We are deeply grateful. And with that, we will go back to Mike Matsuo, our land administrator, for our fourth informational item. Yes, thank you so much, Michelle. So we'll go back to Mike Matsuo for this informational item, which is a presentation of the report and recommendations to the board with respect to HRS 92-2.5, the permitted interaction group on the redevelopment of the Veritania property.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, and members again. Mike Matsuo, Land Division. Here today I'm presenting in accordance with the Hawaii Revised Statutes, Section 92-2.5, B1, capital B, the Veritania Redevelopment Permitted Interaction Group report regarding its findings and recommendations. I don't see the report here. There it is. So there's the report. Let me just start with a little bit of background information. I think most of us know this already, but at the request of the City Council, we began the effort to redevelop the Veritania property back in 2012, and it even resulted in us releasing a request for proposals in March of 2013. However, no developer was selected, and developers did indicate to us that the scope of the request for proposals made the redevelopment a little too risky for them. So we decided to hire a private development firm and had them perform a market analysis. And they recommended 3 different scenarios, which you see there: assisted care living facility with multi-level parking structure, affordable senior rental apartments with multi-level parking structure, and just a multi-level parking structure. On October 22nd, 2018, a permitted interaction group comprised of board members Ray Soon, Max Sword, and Kei Matsui was approved by the board to ensure that the long-term use of the Veritania complex adequately served the needs of both the department and its customers, and to serve as an avenue to freely discuss issues and exchange information and ideas without violating the Sunshine Law. Because of the scale of the redevelopment and to identify any potential environmental issues as well as any other developmental challenges, it was decided that we would issue an environmental impact statement. And so we went through the process where we did the preparation notice, we met with the Downtown Chinatown Neighborhood Board, we had a public presentation at Central Middle School, and then we released the preparation notice, we did the draft EIS, and we released the final EIS in November of 2020. And it was out for a 60-day challenge period. We did not get any challenges to the EIS, so it was, and that period ended on January 7th of this year. The permitted interaction group actually met with the manager, chief engineer, as well as BW staff, our consultants who were helping us prepare the request for proposals, and also the City Department of Planning and Permitting. And they met between December 2018 and May 2021. The report details what was discussed at those various meetings. This all culminated in the May 2021 meeting, where the permitted interaction group felt that the time is not right to develop the property given the current economic turmoil and uncertainty. And while not rejecting the 3 recommended scenarios, the group believes BWS needs to place itself in a better position by considering A, upzoning the property from its current A2 medium density apartment zoning. This will help us to maximize the use of the property, and also possibly partnering with a medical provider such as Queens to capitalize on future medical and hospital-related opportunities that would likely be the highest and best future use of the Veritania property. To this end, the Permitted Interaction Group came up with several recommendations along those lines. They recommended that we ask our consultants to evaluate and assess what would be required to rezone the property from A2 zoning to something higher, such as BMX3, which is community business mixed use, and if it would require updating or revising the EIS. Recommended to rezone the property if doing so makes economic sense and will expand opportunities for the department in the future. It was also recommended that we obtain an opinion from the Department of Corporation Counsel as to whether the redevelopment has to be through a competitive process in compliance with Chapter 103D, with the Procurement Code of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, or whether we can actually approach Queens to not only discuss their long-term vision, but also the possibility of a partnership where both Queens' objectives are met and the return to BWS is maximized. And also recommended to reestablish the Permitted Interaction Group when the economy and state have recovered to the point that the development can proceed with a higher level of confidence of success. So next steps, in accordance with the Hawaii Revised Statutes, we are submitting this report to the board today. The board may ask questions of the Permitted Interaction Group members to get a better understanding of the report, findings, and recommendations. However, Section 92-2.5B1 capital C requires that board discussion, deliberation, and decision-making occur at a subsequent meeting. At this point, I'd like to offer board members Soon and Sword an opportunity to add anything to the report or to answer any questions that the board members may have.
I think Mike did a really good job of reviewing what happened and what we did. If we could say it in the simplest terms, Max and I truly believe that the time is not ripe, that this isn't the right time. We also believe that the limitations of the options when we first were presented with them are due to the 2 things. One is the zoning envelope that encompasses the property, and 2 is the decision to move as quickly as possible and therefore not to rezone the property. We think that's a mistake, especially given that time right now is not the most economically stable time, and that we may in fact have the time to step back and reevaluate how we can maximize the use of that property. And therefore, it's basically saying, let's pause and let's wait for a better time. This is not the time for us to be pushing forward with the redevelopment of the site. Max?
Nope, well said.
Questions?
Chair, so at the next meeting, we'll put this item as an action item for the board to receive and to make a decision on how to move forward. And board members can ask freely then the questions regarding the report and discuss it.
Sounds great. Yeah, any further questions at this time from anyone or comments from our PIG members?
Yeah, just a quick question. This is Roger. The report that was in the packet, that's the entire report, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Matsuo or our members? Okay, if not, thank you so much, both to our KIG members, and to Mr. Matsuo for presenting again.
Okay, Chair, can you just hang on to a second?
Sure.
Can we provide members with the EIS if they want?
It is a public document. It's been completed and accepted. So we can, in the interim between board meetings, actually distribute a copy of the completed EIS on this project. So board members could freely look at it, get some background, and ask questions at the next meeting.
Roger, if you wanted more depth into the issues, the EIS is pretty good. We can supply you with that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. I know where to find it online as well, so.
Okay,
no problem.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do you and just for real quick question, do you folks know which environmental notice it was posted in, the final, so we can go back and just download it?
Oh, November 8, 2020.
The FEIS.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, just wanted to check. Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Anything else, board members? If not, if we don't have anything else, then again, thank you so much, Mr. Matsuo and our board members. Next up is item number 5. We will go to Raylin Kobayashi, our Executive Support Office, will give us an update on our fiscal year 2021 claims management summary. Ms. Nakabayashi.
Hello, board members. Let me get my present or the letter. So, Raylan Nakabayashi, Executive Support Office, and I'm here to present fiscal year 2021 claims management summary. Let me get into my presentation. Okay. Okay, so I thought that I would start with like a little bit of background on how we end up with claims and how I end up before you folks in executive to discuss claims and the settlement of claims. So just a little bit of background from Water Research Foundation. So tort law holds a person or entity to a defined and certain standard of care. When other persons or property are injured because of a failure to uphold that standard of care, the result is that the person who failed is held liable. The Water Research Foundation goes further to say, the matter of whether a water utility can be held liable for infrastructure failures is unique to each state where the utilities are located, because there is standard of care that the utilities are held to changes across jurisdictions. So in Hawaii, tort claims such as those for injuries or damages from, say, a water main break or any type of water infrastructure failure would end up in civil court, and the civil jury instructions currently to jurors in this venue are that plaintiffs must prove by preponderance of the evidence that defendants was or were negligent, and that such negligence was the legal cause of the plaintiff's injuries and or damages. Plaintiffs must also prove the nature and extent of their injuries and or damages. So even in reviewing claims, these are the types of things that we keep in mind before we choose to settle or bring anything before you folks. So there are a couple of components of that. We have a duty that we may have breached our duty, that the causation, or we were the cause of the injury or damages before we move forward on claims. So I know this kind of all came up and a summary was asked because I come before you in executive to make recommendations on the settlement of claims. So just a little bit of background of how we manage claims. It does fall into my office. I have a risk management office in executive support. I have a departmental risk manager and a claims management specialist. I think board member Babcock had asked before if we, this is like normal practice that we bring claims, we settle them. I just wanted to note that both of those two highlighted positions, they're licensed adjusters. So the Board of Water Supply is largely self-insured for these types of matters, which is why we have adjusting staff to handle claims made against the board. For a program of self-insurance, it's actually required, especially for auto. So within my office, so I have on the right side of your screen the budget breakdown. So my risk management office is shown here, and I highlighted specifically the object line code that we budget to make payouts on claims. Okay, so in the past 3 fiscal years, 2019 through 2021, this is the total amount expended in that specific object code, claims for personal injuries and property damages. So a little over 2 million, little under 6 in 2020, and this past year was just shy of $1 million. As you know, when we went through the water master plan and we went through the infrastructure plans, pipelines and the maintenance of our pipelines was one of the things that was studied and brought up, and goals and metrics are set around their maintenance and replacement. As noted in the plan, the main breaks have been on the decline and have been holding. This is what I guess would describe our standard or our duty to ensure that we inspect and maintain our pipelines. So the water master plan, all of the efforts that we put in to making sure the pipeline is maintained and replaced as needed. I think we're at our goal of 1%, or we're working towards our goal of 1% per year. So this is just a snapshot of the main breaks recorded from fiscal years 2016 through 2021. As was kind of outlined in the water master plan, they are kind of holding. So we've been in the 300s. Main breaks are not the only reason the board may get a claim, but it's the ones that you will see me coming before you the most, because there will be more damages associated with the main break claim. So I had my staff continually does loss runs. So our general liability loss runs are before you on the screen. This doesn't include auto claims. It also doesn't include all litigated matters, because not all lawsuits are preceded by a claim that gets filed with us first. So the number of claims, like the amount of payout, can vary every year. Of the total general liability claims presented, we also have a column for main break related claims that were presented, and then the total number of claims closed in those years, amount paid to date in those fiscal years, and how many claims I have open still that we're continuing to adjust. That pretty much wraps up my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nakabayashi. Board members, do we have any questions on this presentation?
Chair, this is Jade.
Go ahead, Jade.
Braylon, for us at DOT, when we have settlement agreements or judgments against us, there's usually a separate appropriation that we get from the legislature. So this to fund the settlement agreement, it's already in your budget?
Yes, we budget for our own settlements or payments on claims or even litigated matters, and it does come from my budget to pay out. It was similar when I was on the city side. There is an appropriation to the Department of the Corporation Council, actually, and they pay on behalf of the city. They settle matters on behalf of the city. The board is a little bit different because we're semi-autonomous, so we don't get a general fund appropriation for settlement of claims. It all comes from our own revenues.
Thank you.
Do we have
Any other
idea
questions?
What it would cost to insure us at the level that we need?
We do have property or general liability insurance. I think we're insured at $10 million. It's just our self-insured retention is quite high. We're we have $1 million SIR, so the damage has to be above the $1 million before we tap on it. So we are insured for general, and we have excess coverage on top of that.
Okay.
Other questions? If not, Tracy, any public testimony or telephone, either telephone or written on this particular item?
No telephone testimony, Vice Chair.
Thank you. So with that, thank you again so much. We will move on to our next
Thank
item.
you.
Hello.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Rick.
So, next up, we have item number 6 for information. Ellen Kitamura, our deputy manager, is going to update us on fee waivers for affordable houselessness and automatic fire sprinkler project. Ellen.
Oh, thank you, Joy. Oh, good afternoon, Vice Chair Sproat and board members. Ellen Kitamura, Deputy Manager. And today I'm giving the annual update on the fee waivers for affordable homeless and automatic fire sprinkler retrofit projects. Okay, let me just turn the lid. Okay, so as you can see from this table, we are in year 3 of our 5-year program. The first 2 years, it started to ramp up, and then this last fiscal year, we actually did hit our cap a little bit over of 500 dwelling units. As you can see here, it was in the affordable. So far to date, 956 dwelling units. And then you see the totals here so far of the individual areas. And for over the 3 years, $1.4 million we've waived. Okay, the next 3 slides just gives a little bit more information of the developments that we have waived, the type, whether it's affordable or homeless, and then the breakdown of each year. So that was in fiscal year 2018 to 2019, 19 to 20, we had 6, or actually I guess 5, because Lamento was phase 1 and phase 2, the total number of units and also the total amount that we've waived. And this past year, where we did hit our cap for affordable projects for a total of about 800,000. So this information here is just a screenshot of the information that we have on the schedule of rates and charges regarding the waiver of the fees. We do have 2 types, the affordable and homeless. And also we do have the waiver for the meter charges for residential fire sprinkler, and these are retrofit. So far we have not gotten any inquiries or for these new meter charges. The last slide that I have here is just additional information, and you've seen this before, but I think it's important to note that the developer must obtain a letter from the city certifying that the project is an affordable or homeless project. We do rely on this because the Board of Water Supply, we are not in the, we don't know if it's a legitimate, affordable homeless project. So we do rely on the city to be able to certify. The fees are waived at the building permit stage. And then we do not, the fee waivers are not retroactive. And they do apply only to fixture units of affordable and homeless dwelling units. So if it's a combination of a market and not affordable, then the waivers are just for the affordable units. Some of the other information here is that unless it's extended by the board, the fee waiver program will expire on June 30th, 2023. So we did very well this fiscal, and hopefully next fiscal we'll be able to help the affordable program. And that's all the information that I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes,
You-
mahalo, Ellen. Go
I have
ahead.
one question.
I think Board Member Soon has a question. Yes.
You ended at 578, and you went over because there were other units in the project, I'm assuming.
The last project needed a few more to get through.
Okay.
So we abided by the, what you folks addressed as the policy.
Okay.
So we,
I guess my question was, are there other projects that would have been financed similarly if we didn't have a cap?
Okay, for this fiscal year, no. We did not have anything waiting in the wings.
Okay.
However, it's very possible for next fiscal year, because the program is getting very popular, that it might happen.
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Ellen.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon.
I got a question.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, Ellen, it seems like the fire sprinkler retrofit program hasn't really hasn't gotten up to speed yet. But I imagine there's going to be some in the future. So I guess we would want to, we're probably going to want to extend that. I would think. I'm not sure what you think. But also the separate question I think is related to maybe to Ray's question. I would hope that if in say FY22, if we saw that there was going to be a lot more than 500, that you would come to the board and ask if we're willing to change that cap, because I think we probably would be. But anyway.
Yes, so Board Member Babcock, if I can answer that question. As far as the residential fire retrofit, yes, they are having some issues getting it started. However, in the future, most likely some of these projects that are still undergoing that life safety evaluation, they may decide that the sprinkler system would be their best option. Now, both the water systems facilities charge for the affordable homeless and this retrofit, they were approved with our schedule of rates and charges back in 2018, and it did undergo the public hearing process. So if there were going to be any changes that you wanted to, that the board would like to make prior to our next visit to the rates and charges, it would have to undergo a public hearing process.
It also needs to go before the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. So there is kind of a process. So right now, the current program goes to 2023.
2023.
But we are starting the process for a rate study this fiscal year, starting this fiscal year. So it's something for the board to maybe consider for the next 5-year rates to see if this program they'd like to continue or modify.
Roger, you missed out on a vigorous conversation about this policy. Not everybody agrees. I'm glad you're on that side. But it's worthy of having again as we near the appropriate time for either continuing the project or the program or not.
Thank you.
What is important, just to add on that, is when the board makes a policy decision on the number of units, we also need to incorporate that into our revenue projections to operate into, and in this case, a lot of the charges are related to money to fund additional capacity to be built in our water system. So if there's a decision to, say, modify the number of units, then we have to kind of build that into our revenue projection for development of the rates and charges. And actually, it'd be important to understand where the board's coming from at that point.
Yeah, that makes
Great.
sense.
Any further discussion or questions on this particular item? If not, thank you so much, Ellen, for your update and for your hard work on this.
Thanks,
and do we have any, I just wanted to confirm that we don't have any testimony, either written or by phone. I would be pleasantly surprised.
No phone testimony, Vice Chair.
All right, with that, then we will wrap it up. Thank you so much, Deputy Mora.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Mahalo. Next up, hang in there, folks. Thank you. Item number 7 for information, we have Kathleen Elliott Kahinui, our Information Officer, who will update us on our 2021 Water Conservation Program. Kathleen.
Mahalo, Vice Chair, board members, manager. Okay, there we go. I want to introduce Lorna Heller. I think most of you met her before. She works in water resources. And we're here to give you our annual update on our conservation programs, things that we're doing. Here's a list of some of the items that we will go over quickly for you today. Lorna?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kathleen. As you just heard, well, thank you for the introduction again. With water conservation, we have been doing several projects, and one of them is called Water Sensible. With this, here in the picture, you can see is team members from our group that promote the Water Sensible program. On the left side, we have Catherine from the Community Conservation Office. We have Stephen from the Communications Office, as well as Marcus, as he's our consultant from Honeywell. This picture is from one of the public outreach events we attended before the pandemic, where we were able to promote the Water Sensible program, both on the residential and the commercial side. On the left side, you can see the current residential rebates, like the clothes washer, the rain barrel, and the WIBIC. That stands for the weather-based irrigation controllers. On the right side, we have the commercial programs that consist of Water Smart, the direct installation, which is free shower heads and aerators, as well as food service, which is a free pre-rinse spray nozzle and aerators, as well as the WIBIC on the commercial side as well. Each month, Honeywell will produce a dashboard which allows us to get a snapshot of how water sensible rebates are going. The program has been in effect since 2019. The most popular rebate continues to be the clothes washer, with over 6,124 applications processed through June 2021. The rain barrels have 247 applications. The WIBICs, they have gone up during the pandemic, and we have seen it level off a little bit, but they're still going and doing well. The food service and direct installations have been on hold since March 2020, since the pandemic. And we have actually turned to social media more and more in 2020 to reach potential customers with the rebate messages. And for City Mill, we actually added a QR code for the customers to access the rebate applications as well as the frequently asked questions. This one. So here are some of the social media rebate messages that we have been using. So thank you to Kathleen and our communications office. They have helped to create these messages and more to inform our customers of the various rebates we have. The clothes washer is a $75 rebate for customers and applies to Energy Star labeled clothes washers only because these are water efficient. The weather-based irrigation controller rebate is where customers can apply for a 50% discount not to exceed $100 on an EPA WaterSense labeled WIBIC, which can save up to 7,600 gallons of water per year. We also have a $40 rebate for rain barrels, which is a good way to utilize water that would normally evaporate or run into the ocean. These rain barrels collect water from roof gutters that can be used for irrigation of plants and can also provide supplemental non-potable water during natural disasters. Okay. Here is a summary of the number of rebates that we have given out to date. As you can see on the table, we have given out a total of 5,911 rebates. Although this equates to over $433,000, we are saving an estimate of 37.2 million gallons of water per year. The 3 pie charts on the bottom of this slide shows you where the customers are purchasing their washers, their rain barrels, and their WIBICs. Just kind of focusing on the rain barrel pie chart in the middle. Just last year, the NEX or the Navy Exchange in orange, they were the ones that were leading and purchasing more rain barrels there. However, Hardware Hawaii has been the largest supplier of rain barrels so far. We continue to work closely with Hardware Hawaii to promote our our rebate program in all of their stores. And business is going so well for them that I can hardly keep the rain barrels on the shelves. Another thing to note is that more City Mill customers are turning in their rebates, but in Hardware Hawaii, they continue to sell more than others. So we want all our customers to have a positive experience going through the rebate process. So all our customers that receive a rebate have an opportunity to respond to a satisfaction survey. Results have averaged 9.3 out of 10, which we feel that one of the contributing factors to this success is the speed that our rebate checks they're getting their rebate checks. Although the application states the processing time will be between 6 to 8 weeks, our current average time is 4.85 weeks. The multi-family direct install program is geared towards the senior and affordable housing or the hard-to-reach customers. For this program, we replace shower heads and put faucet aerators to reduce water use. As of now, we are saving approximately 2.75 million gallons of water per year. While saving is indirect to the renter, the landlord's water bill is lower. This is another way that we can support our affordable initiatives. So the BWS Water Master Plan established a performance scorecard for the water conservation program. The performance metrics is indicated in colored dots. The red dot means the goal was missed by greater than 10% and means that the Board of Water Supply is working to improve the level of service in that area. The green dot is meeting the goal. So the conservation funding target is 4% of the CIP, and in 2016, that amounted to an annual spending of $3.35 million. BWS continues to increase the program capacity from $0.89 million in 2016 to $2.1 million in fiscal year 2022. This is about 62% of the $3.35 million goal set in fiscal year 2016. The per capita demand fluctuates with weather and tourists present as well as residents absent. The per capita demand is 155 gallons per capita per day, with a goal of decreasing it to 145 gallons per capita per day by 2040. I think that's my part, and back to Kathleen.
Thank you, Lorna, appreciate it. Okay. This is just a quick list of our marketing messages. We started out with conservation a little bit earlier this year due to the drought conditions that we're experiencing and based on the report that came out of the Weather Service this year. Ernie asked us to start a little bit sooner than normal. Every 3 years, we do need to hire a new marketing agency. So we went out this past year and we changed marketing agencies from a traditional ad agency to a company that has a stronger public relations focus that's going to help us extend our reach. For example, due to their connections, because of COVID, we weren't able to do a lot of these disaster prep fairs and senior fairs that we normally do every year. And so, but we have all these wonderful 2.5 gallon water jugs, and we're currently in our hurricane season. So we went to our marketing consultant and we said, who do you know? And he actually knew a lot of people. He had done work for the state on the the Council on Aging, and he also had some connections through Department of Health. So we were able to get rid of, or put out actually, over 1,000 water jugs in a 1 month period. So we were able to still fulfill our mission of getting these jugs into the hands of the most vulnerable, our senior citizens and those that have disabilities that may not be able to evacuate easily during a disaster. He also helped us get into a couple newsletters for senior scams. As we know, seniors are vulnerable to scams. And we got into, again, a couple of their newsletters to help us when it kind of goes in cycles, and there was a cycle coming up, so we took advantage of that to get that information out. We put together a long-term communication strategy that we will be sharing with management in a couple weeks, and this plan will help us stay on message and a stronger, more cohesive approach. We're really looking for out-of-the-box ideas. COVID, as you can imagine, put a real lock on our ability to outreach to the community. We do so many events. I mean, we can do up to 100 events a year, and obviously we weren't able to do that in the past year. One of the programs that we've been doing since about 2008 is Water Smart. It allows single-family residents to look up their water usage and compare it with their neighbors. It's just another way to get people conscious of their water use in their home and outside their home. And here are some social media messages that we use to outreach to the community. We also looked at new events, and so we found 2 new events we added to our calendar last year. World Water Day, which is a UN-focused initiative, and then we developed something called Kai Wednesday, where we reached out to the community. So for World Water Day, we did some social media posts. What does water mean to you? Things like that. Much of the world does not have access to fresh water. We're very blessed here in Hawaii that we have good water that we can just pump out of the ground. Here's some events that we did for Kai Wednesday. What we did is we developed some questions. We put them out on Instagram, and then people would win little prizes. And you can see there our grand prize winner. She won a rain barrel. Thank you to Lorna and her team for that donation. And another really important event that we've been doing for the last few years is called Imagine a Day Without Water. It is a national event. A lot of the water utilities on the mainland also participate. And last year, despite COVID, we put together a panel and we increased our participants from about 8, and I think we had about almost a dozen last year. So Board Member Babcock, we will be reaching out to your division again, and hopefully they will join us. But you know, we even reached out and we got the Department of Water on Kauai and on Maui. So we made it more of a statewide, a bigger event, which is really great. And then we did, you know, a panel of experts that we had, and that's all up online. We also did videos by various members. Two in particular were very heartfelt. One was a doctor and one was a nurse, about the importance of water to them and what it means to them in their occupation. We continue to look for new initiatives. In conversations with the manager, we are looking at doing a first-time homebuyer kit. You know, home buyers, they get into it, they don't know what's going on. I know, because I was a first-time home buyer at one time, and you know, all these little things about your water. I had a leak in my water system, and I had no idea until I got my first water bill. So we want to give people this information in advance on how to look for these things and what to do, like toilet flapper kits and things like that. The other thing we want to work with is our customer care division on a conservation program for people who do owe us money. You know, we don't want them to get deeper into debt with us. So are there ways that we can train, you know, teach them and show them how to conserve water in a better way to help them reduce their overall costs? And then again, the irrigation, as Lorna mentioned, the weather-based irrigation controller, especially with commercial properties, it's a great opportunity for us. And then we also are working with other environmental groups as well to do various and sundry events. I just wanted to share this one with you coming up. It's a little bit soon, but it's so cool. I think it was very cool. Show and tell, right? I'm blessed to have an incredibly creative staff. I mean, they're wonderful. They're very smart. They're very creative. And one of our team members, Michelle Harmon, came over to us from HydroGeo. Thank you, Lorna and Barry. And she is very environmentally conscious. She's really into it. And she developed with the state, you know, OHIA program, because, you know, we are suffering from rapid OHIA death, correct? And so what people don't understand is when you go hiking into the watersheds, you bring stuff on your shoes. So when you come out, if you don't clean your shoes or even go in and clean your shoes, you're actually degrading the environment. And as you know, watersheds are near and dear to our hearts. So we put together this little kit. We can put alcohol, a brush, a little box, some stickers, information. And so we're working with the state, the invasive species team, to help pass these out. And so we're reaching out to hiking groups and things like that. So this, she developed all on her own with their help. And what a creative and wonderful idea, because watersheds are the absolute basic start for us for our water system. Without a healthy watershed, we do not have healthy water aquifer. So I just wanted to share this with you. I just thought it was such a wonderful idea. And again, this just comes from our own team, just going and looking and talking to people. So and partnering with environmental groups is another really great way that we can help the environment and help our watersheds. And that takes us to one of our premier programs, Lorna.
Thank you. Hello again. So here we have the Rain Barrel program. This is an ongoing educational program that typically was offered 4 to 5 times a year throughout the year. But since the pandemic, we have not had any workshops, but have been promoting the rain barrels through the rebates and have been promoting this also through our social media. So as Kathleen mentioned, Michelle from their group has been working with us because we have been successful at distributing over 100 barrels through the new online form that was created from the communications office and is available when we have the adequate supply. So rain barrels, again, they have proved popular during the pandemic since most of the residents were home and they're focused on various home projects. I think from there you can see that we've have given out over 1,200 rain barrels since 2008. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna. And as always, we have our ever popular calendar contest. Obviously, our posters dropped considerably this year, our entries. We normally end up around 1,000 posters and about nearly 900 poems. So this is a real tribute to the teachers that felt that this was an important part of their curriculum to include this. The teachers really like this program because it covers so many different bases and they weave it in. It touches Hawaiian culture, it touches science, it touches art. So this day it's a very popular. So we're going to start a little bit earlier this year now that the children are going to be back in school. Well, most of them will be, and really try to get those numbers back up again. But again, more power to those that went ahead and participated despite all the challenges with COVID. And again, we didn't have really any events or tours this year. So we did, here's a sample of some of the social media things that we did. Another person on our team that did an absolutely stellar job, I think this year, was Sherry McComey. Sherry manages our Xeriscape garden. And I know board member Anthony is going to join us this year, so we're very excited about that. We are doing a very scaled down event. It's pretty much just selling plants this year, but that's okay. Everyone's still very excited to have it. When we reached out to volunteers internally, we still had over 50 people from our staff want to volunteer at the event. But Sherry went ahead and developed some incredibly wonderful little videos for workshops, and here are a couple screenshots from them. We can testify they were very good because Ellen is very crafty, and Ellen went ahead and did some of these workshop events. So she made some little containers and things like that. But it was, again, another way to continue to reach out to our audience, to people who have an interest in this. We are starting to work on our revamp of the garden. We're going to be fixing some things in there and doing some things to upgrade it and freshen it up. It's been a long time since we've done that. So we're very excited. Again, we'll continue doing these efforts. And then hopefully at some point in the hopefully not distant future, we will be able to slowly move back into live events such as what we're doing for our plant sale this year. Thank you very much. If there are any questions for myself or Lorna. Thank you.
Any questions, board members?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Yeah, Kathleen, DFM will be happy to participate again in that event. I guess I had a question for Lorna. It seems like you could calculate a payback period for the rebate program. So if you took the I'm not sure if you've done that, but if you took the 37 million gallons per year saved, and you've got the $433,000, and every 1,000 gallons worth about $5.25, you get a couple of years, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so great program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What an excellent suggestion. Any other questions? If not, any testimony on this particular item?
No phone testimony, Vice Chair.
All right, with no testimony on this, thank you again so very much.
Thank you.
Lorna and Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen.
We appreciate your folks' hard work and your ingenuity. All right, item number 8 is up next. We have Barry Usagawa, our Program Administrator for Water Resources, who's going to be providing us with a status update on our groundwater levels and all index functions. Barry.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and members. Let's see. So, let me find it.
Joy, can you help me?
Okay, there you go.
Oh.
Is that the wrong one?
That's the wrong report.
Hey. That's the one. I can't. How do you do that? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Need somebody more tech savvy than me, I guess. So how do you advance it? There. Okay, so there were 3 aquifer index wells in low groundwater condition for June. Kaimuki and Wailua are in caution, and Honolulu was just in alert. You know, it's not really, it's just on the top of 16 feet. The monthly production was about 150 million gallons per day. The rainfall for June was 51% on normal, and the 5-month moving average is 97%. But as we get into August, September, the 5-month moving average will start to drop closer to 50%. The way the forecast is going, it's just got March was a high rainfall month, so it's bringing up the 5-month average. But it is getting drier and hotter. I reported last month that the Oil Drought Committee met in the in June, and the National Weather Service is still forecasting a dry summer, and it's going, the wet season will start later in the season, so towards December. So they didn't say exactly what month, but the wet season will come because of the increasing chances of a La Nina condition, but it will start later in the season. The monitor wells are decreasing, and the 5-year monthly average for pumpage is above the average. So in response to that, that's why the conservation program has ramped up its messaging through all the social and TV outlets. You heard a very passionate and dedicated conservation staff, and they believe in the benefit of conservation. So starting it early, getting the message out, and hopefully it'll cut the peak that we'll see coming up to the later parts of the summer. But with that, that's my report, and I'll be available for any questions. I think you're on mute.
Kapoor, you're on mute.
Sorry, folks. Any questions for Mr. Usagawa?
No.
I just have one. You live in Kaneohe, how come you have a cactus as your avatar?
It's a take back of the old water share. Kazuo Yoshida was a water sheriff, so I was a deputy, and that's what we use as a practice, you know. So yeah, it's a thank you.
Thanks, Harry.
Thank you for that clarifying response. It's very good to know.
There's only one
Yeah.
sheriff in town, and that was Kazu.
Oh, but mahalo, Barry, for all of the good work that you and your staff do. We appreciate it very much. And with that, we are on to our last item for information. Jason Nikaito, our program administrator assistant for field operations, is going to give us an update on our water main report for June. Jason?
Hey, good afternoon, board. Following is the water main repair report for June 2021. There were 26 main breaks in June, one of which was the 42-inch on Honolulu Freeway, and I'll be giving a short presentation after the water main repair report. That brings the total amount of main breaks for the fiscal year at 343, which is similar to previous year's main break total of 349. The leak detection team investigated 15 miles of pipeline and found 63 leaks, 3 of which were on a main line. And for the year, the leak detection team was able to find 541 leaks using our Utilis program. So we were very pleased with that. Are there any questions for the main repair report?
Board members, any questions for Jason?
Okay, if not, have a short presentation on the 42-inch break.
Excellent.
Okay, so some of the milestones for the break. The break was reported on June 18th, which was a Friday, and it was reported by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer contractor as they were drilling a new sewer line across the freeway. Then on June 27th, the main was repaired. A few days later, on June 30th, after flushing and disinfection, the main was put back in service. But after that, we had to restore the work area and do some road repaving. And on July 8th, the freeway was paved and all lanes were opened. So it took about 3 weeks from the time the main was reported as damaged to the time the freeway was opened. Okay, here's a kind of an overview of where the break occurred. The blue line is our 42-inch main. It kind of runs in the shoulder of the freeway. And the yellow line is the Army's alignment for their new sewer pipe. So where those two lines meet was where the pipe was damaged. Okay. During the first few days, we had to shut down 2 lanes of the freeway in order for us to excavate and do some of the investigative work. And to do that, we had to bring in some large equipment. So this is a very large excavator that we rented, which is not typical of our normal jobs. And while doing this repair, we encountered many challenges. So some of which was in the bottom right-hand corner of the picture, that is a sewer manhole for the Army. Then on the left-hand side is the footing and piles for the freeway on-ramp. And at the bottom, you see a concrete jacket. So all of those, for the 42-inch line, so all of those were working against us while we did the repair. And this kind of shows Following we did the excavation, safety was very important. And in order for traffic to move, we ended up working with just one lane closure. So thank you to board member Putai and his staff for providing the concrete safety barriers you see here, which allowed our crews to work safely right next to a busy freeway. Okay. This is the picture of the shoring being installed. So that is just 1/2 of the shoring that was installed. It's a 12 by 12 by 8 foot high aluminum box. And that was put in to the excavation that we dug. And here you can see how deep that actually is. But down there you can, in the yellow is one of our workers. So our total excavation was between 16 to 20 feet deep. And in order to investigate the damage, we cut a hole in the top of the pipe. And you can see where the light is shining. That is the hole that was damaged by the Army's contractor with their drill. So the left hand, I believe you saw the actual piece of pipe last month. That's a picture of it. It's approximately 10 by 8 foot hole. And on the right, you see the welded piece that repaired the pipe. Okay. And then this is the before and after. So on the left, you see the damaged section. And on the right-hand side, you see the fully repaired pipe. So you can't really tell it was damaged after that. And with the repair, it should last for quite a while. Then once we repaired the inside of the pipe, we had to put the top back. So we had the welders come in again and weld the top portion of the pipe back. And this is a picture of the excavation and the pipe once everything was done. And before we pulled out the shoring and backfilled the trench. And this is the picture of the backfill. So this is unique in that I believe this is the first time that field used what's called CLSM, controlled low strength material, as a backfill material. So basically it's like cement that we just put into the hole and it'll self-level, and we wouldn't need to do compaction. So it saved a lot of time by using this. And also we had voids created under the freeway overpass. So this allowed us to make sure we provided enough support for the on-ramp once we were done. And then finally, we had our paving contractor come in once we finished the restoration and pave the freeway. So that's probably the nicest part of the freeway that's paved in that area right now. And then that concludes the presentation on the 42-inch repair. Are there any questions?
I just have one question. So who you sent the bill to?
Finance is working on that. We're still accumulating all the costs for that.
We're collecting all the cost.
Okay. So just looking at the diagram, the rest of the pipe going east is under the freeway.
Yes. Yeah. And it'll cross the freeway and come up the middle street.
The pipeline.
Well, hopefully they don't drill another hole somewhere along that pipe.
Let's hope they don't.
Yeah.
But the original pipeline that went in through this area was installed in the 40s, before there was even a freeway. And then the freeway structure was, on-ramp structure was built, so part of the 1940s pipe had to be relocated and deepened to allow the freeway structure to come in, also with some big drains across the freeway. I just want to take this opportunity to recognize the hard work and great leadership that Jason Nikaido and his Field Operations Division provided in a very, very challenging main break situation. Working with the other divisions in BWS, the Communications Office, Water System Operations, Water Quality, and Capital Projects all worked very hard to get this done. I'd also like to recognize the cooperation. Thank you, Jade. Department of Transportation was great in their support of this effort, working with us. Close coordination with Ed Sniffen and Ryan and Shelley from your office, Jade. They did great on their support for our repair. I also want to recognize the City Department of Transportation Services for their support and coordination. We kept everybody in the loop. We also had frequent meetings with the Army and their contractor. So thank you. Good job, Jason.
That was all my staff. They worked really hard to get this
And
done.
also Mike Fouquet, who has since retired. Thank you.
Jason, before you leave us, you said that we had in your leak detection program, which we've been using, you've been talking to us about, somewhere in the order of 500 found leaks, and I realize those are not necessarily leaks that would have showed up, but rather they're leaks that we've discovered and repaired. But how is it that we still at 340 some odd leaks for the year? Can we anticipate that these will go down because we're finding leaks?
Yes, as we find more leaks and also with the main replacement program,
Yeah.
we would expect over time for the amount of breaks to go down.
Okay, so we'll talk about this next year.
We're not making any promises, so I don't want to bocce ourselves.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions?
These are not necessarily leaks, but breaks, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Whole pipes, I mean.
A leak could be a meter coupling leak.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not a main.
But still, with you folks doing all the changes and stuff, we should, as Ray said, be a little bit better next year.
Yeah, it should help.
We're crossing our fingers.
Any other questions for Mr. Nicardo? No, if not, I just want to add my thanks both for your excellent work and also for the update to the board. It's really helpful when we have issues like this that are significant issues of concern for our community to have your folks' perspective on what happened, and helps us as board members be better prepared so that we can help to respond to any inquiries we might have. So thank you very much for that. It was incredibly helpful. And with that, that brings us to the last item on our agenda. And so I just really want to mahalo everyone today for all of your time and your aloha, Manager Lau, Deputy Director, staff, all of us. And this concludes our July meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
I believe that was moved by Member Sword, by Member Soon, and seconded by Member
Sword. Second by me.
Soon.
All right. Soon. Move by Sword, second by Soon. Excellent. Do we have any discussion on that? If not, then I think we can just do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? If not, that passes unanimously. We adjourn our meeting at 4:20 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone, and aloha.